Hello there viewers, and welcome back to my Batman movie retrospective. In the last part, I covered Batman 66, 89, and Batman Returns. So for this part, I will be taking a look at the next two live-action Batman movies on the list, the Joel Schumacher duology. And once again, just like the last part, I will be ranking each movie's version of Batman, from the actor's portrayal to the way the character is written, and with the criteria in mind of what I look for in a good Batman. So with that, let's get started. So next up we have Batman Forever. Not gonna lie, upon rewatching the movie, it is much better than I remember. This was initially meant to be Tim Burton's third Batman movie. However, due to the backlash of Batman Returns being too dark, and the marketing being misleading, Warner Bros. Decided to bring in director Joel Schumacher to inject some more lighthearted humor into the franchise and win back the general audience. And they allowed Tim Burton to stay on as a producer. However, when Joel said, "Why does everything have to be so dark?" Michael Keaton immediately said, "Fuck this shit, I'm out." So now we have a new Batman in the form of Val Kilmer, and Joel Schumacher would ensure that his Batman movie would be much more family friendlier than Burton's first two movies. However, McDonald's would not sign a deal for a collaboration until they saw a script for Batman Forever, because understandably they did not want a repeat of the Batman Returns disaster. And the first few lines of dialogue in the movie were literally made to fit into a McDonald's commercial. And they perfectly set the tone for the movie.
Can I persuade you to take a sandwich with you, sir?
I'll get drive-through.
Batman Returns may have went all out with the weirdness, but Batman Forever just goes completely over the top. This movie brings back some of the campy nature from the 60s Batman series, from the action to the over-the-top acting.
Oh no! It's boiling acid!
The fight choreography is still goofy, but an improvement over the first two, because Batman is actually able to move around a lot better, and Joel sure does like his slow-mo shots. And Batman looks silly whenever he glides or swings around, because his momentum is so slow, but his cape just flows around. Like, how is he even gliding? Gotham City this time, rather than being a dystopian nightmare, is a lot more colorful with neon lights everywhere, and ridiculous architecture. And there's a scene where 1 minute the Batmobile is on the road, and the next it's on the bridge above. This movie... I can't. Oh, and once again, he has a new love interest, because for some reason we just can't have a superhero movie, let alone a Batman movie, without a love interest. This time, the Bat's love interest is a psychiatrist named Dr. Chase Meridian, who is fascinated with why this grown man is dressed as a bat, and spends his every waking moment putting himself in danger to help others and fight criminals. And Chase's involvement in the story helps explore Bruce Wayne's character, and why he is the way he is. Which is what the first two movies kinda missed out on. Like, the first one did show us his backstory in the third act, but Batman Forever dives deeper into Bruce's psyche and his motive for being Batman. I feel like this movie properly shows how Bruce's parents' deaths affected him at a young age, and turned him into the lonesome vigilante he turned out to be. And I like how in the rooftop scene, Chase is the one trying to come on to Batman, and he keeps turning her down without breaking his serious attitude. I don't know, after seeing how easily Catwoman was able to seduce him and stab him in the last one, it's refreshing to see Batman being able to take a situation seriously, and not let his guard down so easily, even around a woman he may just like a little bit. Once again, Batman is up against two villains, former Gotham City District Attorney Harvey Dent, aka Two-Face, played by Tommy Lee Jones. He became Two-Face after his face was half burned and it drove him insane with a split personality disorder, and he relies on his lucky coin to make his decisions. And Tommy is just so over the top. Whenever Two-Face tries to kill Batman and fails, he throws a mini tantrum like a kid. Out of all the villains so far, this guy really has it out for Batman the most. Why can't you just die? By the beginning of the movie, Two-Face is already established as a villain in Gotham's criminal underworld, which I like, as we already had 3 villain origin stories in the last 2 movies. However, our other villain still gets that treatment, and I think his turn to villainy is done pretty well. Edward Nygma, aka the Riddler, played by the legend himself, Jim Carrey, one of the funniest comedians ever. Jim was seriously on a roll during the 90s. The Mask, Ace Ventura, Dumb and Dumber, Liar Liar, The Truman Show, and recently he killed it as not 1 but 2 Dr. Robotniks. And the traits he brought to Sonic's arch nemesis can easily be seen in his take on the most ego-driven villain in Batman's Rogues Gallery. Edward in this movie is an employee at Wayne Enterprises, and he has an unhealthy obsession with his boss. He then takes the opportunity to show Bruce Wayne his ludicrous invention that reads people's brain waves. Bruce, after kindly taking the time to listen to his crazy idea, turns Edward down and straight up hints to him that he has a few screws loose. So Edward goes even more nuts and kills his supervisor and straight up uses CGI to fabricate his death as a suicide.
Yep, definitely suicide.
Gotham's police commissioner, everyone! Edward then dons his Riddler persona and teams up with Two-Face to take down Batman, and finances his plan to read and drain the minds of everyone in Gotham. And although these two seem to have great chemistry together on camera, that was not the case off camera. Apparently Tommy Lee Jones grew a hatred towards Jim Carrey because, in Jim's words, he could not sanction his buffoonery. I don't know, perhaps Tommy Lee Jones was just jealous of how famous Jim Carrey became in such a short period of time. And Jim Carrey doesn't seem to have any ill will towards him. Oh, and Batman is not alone in his battle against these two. He's now got a Robin, played by Chris O'Donnell. Bruce and Chase go to a charity circus where Bruce is a patron. Two-Face steals the show and kills the Flying Graysons family. Bruce then takes in the only survivor, their youngest son, Dick, a teen who likes motorcycles and takes the freaking Batmobile for a joyride. And after losing his family, he wants to exact revenge on Two-Face by killing him. But Bruce actually tries to talk him out of it and tells him that killing Two-Face would bring him no satisfaction, and that he would keep looking for revenge on others. That's right, this is the first live-action Batman movie to properly acknowledge Batman's no-kill rule. And Batman's kill count in this movie is thankfully very low. After spending time with Chase, Bruce actually considers hanging up the cowl, as Chase now has a crush on him rather than his vigilante persona, which brings that stupid bat smile to his face. I think it's actually interesting how this movie explores the idea of Bruce finding happiness. I'm wondering if he really should continue his duties as Batman, or live the rest of his life as Bruce Wayne and put his pain to rest. This movie really feels more about Bruce Wayne than the last two. However, the Riddler and Two-Face barge into Wayne Manor since Alfred somehow thought they were trick-or-treaters. The Riddler blows up the Batcave, and Two-Face's goons go after Bruce and Chase, while Two-Face sits on his ass until he lets the coin make the decision to shoot Bruce. Batman, with the help of Robin, rescues Chase and puts a stop to Riddler's plans by blowing up his machine that drives him batshit crazy.
Batman.
So overall, I had a blast revisiting this one. It's been a good 10 years since I watched Batman Forever, and maybe it was because Batman and Robin left a bad taste in my mouth when I was younger, but I gotta say, Batman Forever is much better than I remembered it being. This movie just refuses to take itself seriously unless it wants to. And somehow it works. The movie is unapologetically over the top, from the action to the dialogue, but somehow, when it does get serious, it just works. And Two-Face and Riddler were a fun combo of villains to see together. Overall, this was surprisingly an enjoyable one to revisit, and I will give it the B tier. As for Val Kilmer's version of the Caped Crusader, to be honest, I think he's quite good. This movie gives Bruce Wayne more attention than the previous two, and I think Val Kilmer does a good job at portraying the two personas. His Batman voice is cool and gritty enough for him to pass off as a scary vigilante, and his Bruce Wayne side is quite interesting. I like how he doesn't immediately brush off Edward, and patiently takes the time to listen to his crazy idea before turning him down. And Batman in this movie is not as dumb as he was in Returns. He's very competent in fights and rarely lets his guard down. This Batman showcases more martial arts fighting skills than the previous one. In fact, he's so strong, he knocks this one dude out with one kick. I love how stupidly goofy this scene is. Like, this Two-Face thug just acts so wild in front of Batman, like, I'm gonna kick your ass! And Batman's just like, okay. So yeah, goofy, but good fight scenes. In terms of his equipment, he's got the usual batarangs, grappling gun, which can now be fired out of his wrist, and he can now use his cape to glide without needing it to transform, even if the cape flowing around in the wind makes it look very silly. The Batmobile now has a neon decor, but I still think it looks cool. I especially like how the Batwing transforms into a bat sub. It's best when Batman has sub-vehicles in his vehicles since he goes through those expensive machines faster than he goes through women. The Batsuit is pretty much an evolution of the '89 suit, as it continues to have the black bodysuit with the yellow oval bat symbol. Only this time around, the cowl doesn't extend too far down to the shoulders, which lets Kilmer move around a bit better than Keaton. Oh, and the bat nipples. Why did Joel Schumacher feel the need to put nipples on a rubber bat suit? Thankfully, they're not on the sonar bat suit that Bruce later equips when Riddler destroys all his other outfits. And I think the sonar suit is actually quite cool. It's got those rocket boots, and those cool lenses when he throws the sonic batarang. And as I said earlier, Batman's kill count in this movie is really low. I mean, there is that one scene where he causes Two-Face's thugs to crash into a wall, blowing each other up, but I will count that as an indirect kill since technically, Batman was just trying to get out of there, and the thugs were the ones driving recklessly after him. It's not like he shot a missile or dropped a bomb on them. And again, throughout the movie, Bruce tries to convince Dick that killing Two-Face won't bring him any satisfaction. So yeah, it seems that Joel Schumacher actually understands Batman's character and his most important— For fuck's sake, he kills Two-Face! Just when it seemed that we finally got a Batman movie that does his character just right, he has to go and kill someone. Especially that someone being an old close friend to Bruce. And after he spent the entire movie trying to convince Robin not to kill Two-Face, he goes and does it for him. God damn it! Despite that, Kilmer's version of Batman is still quite good. They still got a lot right with Batman's character in this one. Kilmer's Batman still has a lot of good that outweighs the bad. He does a good job at portraying the two sides of Batman's character, and I like how Batman's last triumphant line to the Riddler is that he is Batman and Bruce Wayne, because he has the choice to be both. Both personas are part of him, and the final part of the movie is about him coming into terms with that. I love when it's acknowledged in any medium that even when Batman is the dominant side of his personality, Bruce Wayne is still a part of him. So with all that being said, I will give Val Kilmer's Batman the B rank. The B rank seems to be the most common rank I'm giving throughout this series, huh? Maybe it's because B is for Batman. Oh boy, this movie. I mean, Batman Forever was better than I remembered. So, maybe this one is 2? Well, that was a load of shit. Yeah, this movie is still just as bad as I remember. With Batman Forever being a huge hit, and winning audiences back over with its campier and light-hearted tone, Joel Schumacher would go even further with the goofy tone for the sequel, Batman and Robin. And this time, it didn't really work. This movie's plot and characters are just so incoherent, and most of the actors sound like they really don't want to be in this movie, including our next new Batman, George Clooney. Yep, Val Kilmer, after giving a pretty solid performance in one movie, was given the boot and Batman got recasted once again. From what I heard, Joel Schumacher said that Kilmer was difficult to work with. And it's kind of a shame because again, I think his Batman was actually pretty good. This time, Batman is up against Mr. Freeze, played by Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yep, they got the frickin' Terminator as Mr. Freeze. And he comes full with his hilarious ice puns.
What killed the dinosaurs? The Ice Age!
They're so bad they make me laugh. Good body! And anyone who knows anything about Mr. Freeze knows that he was once a promising scientist named Victor Freeze, who is determined to save his dying wife Nora. But after falling into a frozen bath, his body becomes mutated and... You know what, if you want to hear me explain Mr. Freeze's character in a better Batman story, go watch my Arkham Origins review. Seriously, there are other Batman stories out there that do Mr. Freeze's story much better, including the Heart of Ice episode from Batman the Animated Series, which turned Mr. Freeze from one of the many obscure laughingstocks of Batman's rogues gallery into one of his most sympathetic and tragic villains. And this movie tries to do both, but Mr. Freeze is just such an asshole in this movie that I don't even feel sorry for him. He wants to freeze all of Gotham City for ransom and use the ransom money to fund his research. Both BTAS Heart of Ice and Arkham Origins Cold Cold Heart storylines had the benefit of building towards the mystery of Mr. Freeze's backstory as we the audience learn it alongside Batman. And they properly show how Freeze's boss Ferris Boyle tried to deny him of his chances of saving his wife in favor of growing his company, making it more understandable why Mr. Freeze turned to a life of crime. But in this movie, however, his plans make zero sense. In the opening, he freezes up a museum to rob a diamond before Batman and Robin intervene. Freeze starts up his car and launches a fucking rocket, and plans to use it to blow up the city. He then leaps out with butterfly wings, while Batman and Robin's city escape after him. Seriously, the physics in this movie are absolute bonkers. Oh, but Mr. Freeze is not the only villain this time around. Now Batman is up against 3 villains. First we have Poison Ivy, played by Mia Wallace from Pulp Fiction. Her boss destroys her Pikmin collection and her along with it, before she comes back from the dead with the ability to control plants. Like Freeze, she's full of puns except with them being plant puns. Oh, and she also has mind manipulation abilities, which she uses to throw a wrench in Bruno and Robert's relationship. Robin acts like a total brat in this movie. I know he's supposed to be a teenager, but still it's annoying. And Bruce accidentally calls his new girlfriend Ivy. Yep, Nicole Kidman's out of the picture. Another Bat-girlfriend out of his life. And Poison Ivy has got a bodyguard in the form of Bane, who, like Mr. Freeze, is a far cry from other incarnations of the character. Bane in this movie is a big, dumb meathead who serves as nothing more than being Poison Ivy's brainless muscle. Bane is not supposed to be a bumbling moron. He's supposed to be one of Batman's most intelligent and fierce foes, rivaling his IQ and combat experience. In the Nightfall storyline, he manages to figure out Batman's identity, wait until he's mentally and physically fatigued, and then beat him and break his back. But here, he just swings his arms around and gets knocked out from one hit from a lead pipe. And instead of being a strong, fearless commander, in this movie, he's nothing more than Poison Ivy's muscle/errand boy. When he grabs Freeze's suit, he just throws it in a shopping cart and then charges through the halls and shoves the guards aside. Yeah, he doesn't punch them or knock them out, they just jump at him and they go flying just from touching him. Oh, and guess what Freeze and Ivy's plan is? Well, after Poison Ivy supposedly kills Nora Freeze, and pins the blame on Batman and Robin. This drives Freeze to wanna freeze Gotham! And then the world. And Poison Ivy's plan is to overrun the world with plants. How are these two plants supposed to work together? Plants need sunlight and warm weather to grow. These two have completely different goals. Why are they even working together? You gotta have one plan or the other. You can't have both! Oh, but this time, we've now got 3 heroes against the villains this time. The newest addition to Team Batman is Barbara Wilson, who takes on the identity of Batgirl. Apparently, in this universe, she is Alfred's niece. And why did they have to make this change to her backstory? Well, on top of this movie already having 3 Bat family members, and 3 villains with goals that contradict each other, this movie has another subplot. Alfred is dying. Yep, as if this movie didn't have enough going on in it, it has this subplot in the mix. And when Bruce tells Dick the bad news, he just smiles? What the heck? Bruce, your father figure is dying! And you're just acting cheery and smiling through it? I swear, that's how he looks whenever it's brought up. And as you can probably guess, like many have done before, I will be ripping into George Clooney's performance in this movie later. So Barbara wants to raise money from street racing to pay for Alfred's treatment, and help him escape from being Bruce's butler. Oh, and Coolio was in this movie, for some reason. Dick discreetly participates in Barbara's street race, and rescues her from falling off a bridge, complete with a shaky camera and green screen. Seriously, it looks like there's an earthquake happening below them. Barbara eventually finds the Batcave and a fucking virtually simulated Alfred, whose real counterpart created a fucking batsuit for Barbara? What the fuck? And he was against her riding motorcycles? And when the trio head to fight Mr. Freeze after witnessing Ivy getting eaten by her own plants, they have Arctic suits! Yep, they took care of Ivy, went home and got changed, and then went to confront Mr. Freeze. And the stupidest part about this is that Alfred not only created a batsuit for his niece, but he also created an Arctic variant, complete with a shitty cowl that she discards after 5 minutes. And I'm pretty sure that the suit Batman is wearing is the sonar suit. So he also went through the trouble to repaint that while the city was being frozen over. And according to this movie's logic, they have 11 minutes to thaw someone before they die of hypothermia. And they have a whole city to unfreeze. How does this make any sense? But somehow in that time frame, the heroes managed to change out of their regular suits into their Arctic suits, beat up Mr. Freeze, and then thaw the city with the power of their mad computer skills. Oh, and once Bane's tubes are snipped, he goes down like a fucking wimp. Again, Bane is such a joke in this movie. Batman then shows a defeated Freeze a recording of Ivy admitting she pulled Nora's plug, that somehow he recorded while he was tied up by her plants. That is another questionable thing about this movie's logic. Gotham City must have secret cameras placed everywhere, because those recordings Batman and Robin watch have some insane angles. It's like they're watching The Truman Show. And when the GCPD show Batman and Robin the footage of Ivy and Bane breaking Freeze out of Arkham, Commissioner Gordon shows them a photo of the two in a shitty disguise and runs down all the crimes they got away with since arriving in Gotham. Seriously, the cops in these movies are fucking useless, including Gordon the fucking police commissioner. He hardly does anything in these movies, and whenever there's a problem or crime, he just waits for Batman to take care of it for him. Again, Gotham's police commissioner, everyone! Back to the ending, Freeze snarls when he realizes that he got Baka-mi tied. Batman then claims that miraculously, Nora is still alive, and that he can arrange for Freeze to continue his research at Arkham Asylum, where he gets to keep his fucking suit! I know that he can't survive without it, but wow. Batman must have pulled some serious strings after Freeze's escape last time caused the deaths of 2 guards, and his cellmate is his accomplice in his escape. Oh, don't worry, Freeze is nice now, so he can keep his suit and he can bunk with Poison Ivy. Again, Mr. Freeze is such an unsympathetic asshole throughout this movie that this moment just doesn't feel very earned. Oh, and conveniently, Freeze just so happens to have the medicine to cure Alfred's sickness, because Alfred happened to be dying from the same disease that Nora was diagnosed with. And just like that, Alfred is fine and the movie's over. Batman Forever may have turned out better than I remembered, but unfortunately, that is not the case with Batman and Robin. Not that I expected this movie to be any better after 10 years of refusing to watch it again. The goofy tone may have worked in Batman Forever, but Batman and Robin just went too far with the campy nonsense. Not to mention the subpar levels of acting, the villain's plans making no sense at all, and the story being all over the place with so many characters and plot lines to juggle. The physics in this movie have zero logic behind them, and out of all the Batman movies so far, this is the worst one. But hey, at least this is not racist Batman. And another reason why this movie turned out the way it did was because it was made to sell even more toys than the other ones pushed for. WB just could not help themselves and wanted to milk the Batman franchise as much as they possibly could. So that's why this movie has new bat suits and new bat vehicles. Because it was made to sell toys. But after all that nonsense, do I hate this movie? No. This movie is really bad, but at least it's funny. This movie makes me laugh for the wrong reasons. It's not as deliciously bad as other disaster pieces such as The Room, but it's at least not a boring movie to sit through. As a movie, it gets an F. From the acting, to the story, to the special effects, this movie just fails at everything. But in the Great Hall of hilariously bad movies, this one gets an A. It's just amusing to see how much went wrong with this movie, including its lead character. Yep, it's time to rank our last live-action Batman from the previous millennium, George Clooney's. Now to be clear, I don't mean any disrespect towards George Clooney. I understand that he's a pretty good actor, but this was probably his worst role. And even he himself agrees that this was not his best work.
Didn't you apologise to the crowd at Comic-Con for Batman and Robin?
I always apologize for Batman.
In terms of the Batman and Bruce Wayne personas, they're non-existent. He's just regular old George Clooney sleepwalking through his lines. As I mentioned earlier, he acts completely careless when Alfred is dying. It's like Harry remembering Peter laughing when he said his father is dead. This Batman has no range of emotions whatsoever. He just smiles and shakes his head through every conversation. And look at how he introduces himself.
Hi, Freeze. I'm Batman.
He just introduces himself like some average Joe in a Batman cosplay. As for his suit, it sucks. It's pretty much the Batman Forever suit, but now with a navy blue coat of paint and more detailed bat nipples. Yep, Joel Schumacher really felt the need to make the bat nipples more detailed because that's what we totally need. His fight scenes are very unappealing, and his detective skills are non-existent. And his gadgets aren't all that interesting. The Batmobile is even more of a glow-in-the-dark toy than the last one, and it doesn't even have a cockpit cover. He's got lasers and a saw, bat ice skates because why the fuck not? I guess Batman's prepared for everything, including to enter the Olympics figure skating competitions. And of course, you all probably saw this coming. Anyone who knows anything about this movie knows about the infamous Bat Credit Card!
7 million.
Complete with sound effects. However, this Batman actually does one thing right. Something that most other live-action Batmen fail at. He does not kill. Yeah, this is the first live-action Batman movie where he doesn't even kill one of the main villains. So credit where credit is... No! Clooney's Batman unfortunately ranks pretty low, from the writing and his subpar performance. Sorry George, you are a fantastic Mr. Fox, but you are certainly no Batman. Which is why I have to give George Clooney's version of Batman the E rank. Oh, but we're not finished just yet. We've still got one more Batman from the previous century to look at. This one is an animated movie as opposed to live action, but it was given a theatrical release, and it is set in the iconic realm of Batman the Animated Series. With all the live-action Batman movies from that era covered, I've saved the best one for last. And this is it. The Holy Grail of Batman movies. If not, definitely a top 5. Batman Mask of the Phantasm, a feature-length story set in the highly successful Batman the Animated Series that was airing around the time. Originally planned to be released for home media, but eventually WB at the very last minute decided to give the movie a theatrical release, leading to the animators going over all the scenes to accommodate for the widescreen aspect ratio. And despite the last minute change for it to be a theatrical release, Batman Mask of the Phantasm somehow is more emotionally gripping and compelling than any other Batman movies at the time. A new vigilante in Gotham who we know as the Phantasm from the movie's title is going around and killing a group of mob bosses one by one, and the blame is getting shifted towards Batman, who thankfully does not break his one rule throughout this movie. Batman investigates these murders, leading to him encountering a familiar face from his past. Like Batman Forever, which was released 2 years later, this movie dives deep into Bruce Wayne's backstory and motivation for being Batman. Instead of the typical backstory of his parents being killed, which everyone already knows by now, and is still a part of the story, this movie takes us back to Bruce's young adult years, where he has just returned to Gotham after his worldwide expedition. He's still figuring out how to avenge his parents when he meets a woman named Andrea Belmont, who he falls in love with. We then see him on his first night as a vigilante, where he manages to stop a bunch of thieves but hilariously fails to strike fear into them. And I love how intentionally bad they made him look at trying to have a badass entrance.
On your stomachs. Arms spread.
Who's this clown?
But as he spends more time with Andrea, he begins to realize that his pursuit to be a crime fighter would risk putting her in harm's way. Bruce contemplates which lifestyle he wants before groveling to his parents that he wants to let go of his desire to avenge them in pursuit of his own happiness, believing that the former is what they wanted. And Andrea shows up to comfort him, and you know what? He almost goes through with it. He almost lets go of his pain to live a happy life with Andrea, and he even proposes to her and she says yes. But unfortunately, Andrea's father's criminal ties force them to leave Gotham, with her returning the wedding ring, and that moment of rejection sealed Bruce's fate. After such a heart-wrenching breakup, Bruce threw all possibilities of his happiness out the window, and he donned his batsuit for the first time, shocking Alfred to see that the boy he raised is gone, and this terrifying Bat vigilante is all that is left of him. This movie does such a great job of straying away from the typical Batman backstory and adds further layers to Bruce's character and motivation for being Batman. After losing his parents, he never thought he could be happy again, and decided to dedicate the rest of his life training himself physically and mentally to ensure that no child ever went through the same traumatic experience he went through as a child. And just when it seemed that there was a possibility for him to live a happy life with a person that cared for him, and to lay his pain to rest, that possibility was torn away from him, further motivating him to don his Batman persona. After the Phantasm kills 2 of the mob bosses, they are beaten to the 3rd one by none other than the Joker, baby! Who was asked by the former to kill Batman, believing he was behind the murders. But anyone who knows Joker knows that he cares little about money and friendship. So he kills the mob boss and uses his corpse to lure out the Phantasm, who manages to escape an explosion before encountering Batman, and disappears, leaving Batman to be pursued by the GCPD. And they almost manage to capture him by inadvertently causing an explosion. Even Harvey Bullock, who doesn't like Batman very much, didn't want him hurt too badly, and he yells at the clumsy enforcer for firing carelessly. And Batman actually starts to bleed. Despite this being an animated cartoon aimed towards children, it's not afraid to get violent, and taking on more mature themes like heartbreak at that. Batman uses his damaged cape and cowl to divert the police's attention away from him, and make his escape with the help of Andrea, who showed up just in the nick of time. Good thing she didn't have a license plate on that car. Andrea explains to Bruce her reasons for leaving Gotham before the two manage to rekindle their relationship, showing that the two haven't lost their love for each other. And Alfred leaves them be. Seriously, the DC animated universe has the best version of Alfred ever. He's such a sassy savage and a good father figure to Bruce. And after Bruce and Andrea reconnect, Alfred tries to assure Bruce that his parents would have wanted him to be happy and not throw his life away trying to avenge them. And before he gets to properly consider that possibility, Bruce comes to the shocking realization that one of the mob gangsters from that group Andrea's father was tied up with was none other than the Joker, baby! Who figures out that Andrea herself was the Phantasm all along. Andrea was out for blood for all of the gangsters that had her father by the throat, including the one directly responsible for his murder, the Joker. Batman intervenes and dukes it out with the Joker as he has done many times throughout the series, but this time with more blood. Joker has the entire abandoned futuristic fair rigged to blow, but Andrea grabs the Clown Prince of Crime to ensure that he wouldn't escape. Andrea gives her love a final goodbye before disappearing with the Joker, who inevitably escapes anyway because he's the Joker, baby! Batman, on the other hand, barely manages to make it out alive. He returns home in probably the downest mood he's been in since the I Am the Night episode. Luckily, Andrea leaves her locket with their photo in the Batcave as a sign to Bruce that she made it out alive. Andrea leaves Gotham City, heartbroken once again, as is the man she could never be with. Batman, however, keeps going. He keeps putting on the suit and continuing his duty to protect Gotham City. Overall, to sum up my thoughts on this movie, it is really damn good. Like, really, really damn good. The story is the most compelling out of all the ones released so far. The dark tone works for this movie very well, Batman's character is more well written than in the Burton movies, and the animation is very appealing. I love the aesthetics and visuals of the Bruce Timm DC animated universe. It's dark but not without its bright colors. The Gotham City buildings look outlandish as they should since it's a fictional city, and I really like the character designs. Joker's got the classic purple suit with the crazy green hair, and I like how long his chin and nose are drawn, and the rest of the characters are also well drawn. Although Andrea looks like she was ripped straight out of a Disney movie. All around as an animation fan, I really dig this movie's art style, and the voice acting is very well done, especially Mark Hamill with his wild Joker performance. It's kinda insane that despite all this movie had going against it, with its last-minute theatrical release leading to a poor box office result, it still got solid reception and was regarded as being up there with the live-action movies, and it made a comeback financially with VHS sales. Despite this movie having a younger target demographic and shorter runtime, it manages to tackle more mature themes and add more depth to Batman's character than the two Tim Burton movies. I will give this movie an exclusive grade for this video. Instead of an S rank, I give it the certified Bat rank. Because this movie certainly deserves it, as it is one of, if not, the peak of the Dark Knight cinematic history. And now, to rank the final Batman for this video. I've been waiting 2 years to talk about him, and now I finally have the proper opportunity to do it. Our final Batman for this part of the retrospective is the late Kevin Conroy. When he first auditioned for the role, he was a theater actor and his only knowledge of Batman was the 60s show, which he didn't even know was live action. The casting director gave him a rundown of the world and the tone of the show, and using his experience with theater and his imagination, Kevin came up with the cool, dark, gritty, badass Batman voice that won over many fans' hearts, and the rest is history. He would even do a sillier version of his voice for Bruce Wayne as part of the character's fake public persona, which was such a genius move on his part. And Kevin Conroy would continue to play Batman from the debut of the animated series to its continuation such as the new Batman Adventures, Batman Beyond, and Justice League Unlimited. He also reprised his role in numerous TV shows and movies, and the highly acclaimed Batman Arkham games. For 30 years, Kevin Conroy was unanimously agreed to be the definitive Batman voice, and for a damn good reason. Not only did he play the role for so long, but he was damn good at it. His voice improved as time went on, and he was always passionate for the character. He didn't have to try hard to make his voice sound cool or intimidating when playing Batman, he just naturally came off that way, which is what made him the best. And it helps that he gave Bruce Wayne a sillier voice and vibe to make people not suspect that Bruce Wayne is Batman. And not to mention, Kevin Conroy worked so well with Mark Hamill's Joker. The two vibed with each other in the recording booth for 30 years, and bounced off each other so well. They were kinda like brothers in a way. Which is funny considering that the characters they played are polar opposites of each other. Whenever Mark Hamill was asked to play the Joker, he didn't want to know anything about the script. His only question was, is Kevin Batman? And if the answer was yes, then his answer was a yes. And sadly, Mark Hamill announced his retirement from playing the Joker, though it is understandable considering the unbreakable bond he shared with Kevin. Kevin Conroy was a legend in the voice acting community, and one that I always looked up to. Rest in peace, Kevin Conroy. You did good.
I care, Joker. About Gotham. About justice. And if it has to end, at least I go out like this, being Batman.
As for Batman himself in the animated series, his fight scenes are very well animated, and he adheres to the no killing rule very well. I love the black and grey suit with the hints of blue across it, and I love the way his cape flows behind him. The cape sort of completes Batman's aura, and his gear is very cool. He's got the typical Bat vehicles and equipment, and I like the long-nosed Batmobile. And his detective skills are quite good, as prominent throughout the show, even impressing the 600-year-old Ra's al Ghul. Everyone may have differing opinions on what the best version of Batman is, but I'm pretty sure that every Batman fan at least agrees that the animated series version of Batman is a really good one, and probably the most faithful adaptation of the character. And what really makes animated Batman the best version in my opinion is his compassion. Throughout the Bruce Timm animated universe, we are shown not only Batman's dedication to fighting crime, but also helping others. Batman is not just about beating the snot out of criminals, he also goes out of his way to save anyone he can, no matter how good or bad they are. Because Batman's mission, above all else, is to save the lives of others and leave the world in a better place than he found it. And the level of compassion that Batman displays throughout the Bruce Timm universe is what makes this my favorite incarnation of the character, because he feels the most human. The most compelling thing about Batman to me is that despite his dark and violent nature, he still has a heart. And he's willing to help anyone he can, even his enemies, which is what makes this version of Batman a true hero. In a world where we have so many incarnations of Batman that miss the point of the no killing rule, I always like to look back at the animated version of Batman, because this version of Batman is the one that gets the character just right. And it feels the closest to what I believe is the perfect Batman. Overall, I give the animated series version of Batman the certified Bat rank. So that about wraps up part 2. Overall quality wise, the Batman franchise on screen so far has certainly been a roller coaster to say the least, with differing tones and different actors giving their own takes on the character of Batman, and not to mention the various villains these movies feature, a lot of which had memorable performances, for good reasons and not so good reasons. So that's about it for all the Batman movies from the previous century. Tune in next time for part 3, where I will be taking a look at a trilogy that was part of my childhood and made me the Batman fan I am today. Tune in next time for the Dark Knight trilogy. Same bat time, same bat channel.
7 million.
A bad credit card, you bastards!
There, I referenced the funny meme. You're welcome.